This is Korea News for April 20, 2022. As social distancing related to COVID-19 is completely lifted, expectations for daily life recovery are rising, and the demand for overseas travel is also increasing. However, it has been found that there are many people who feel the burden of overseas travel due to the heavy PCR test cost and increased fuel surcharges. Recently, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport announced a step-by-step plan to restore daily life for international flights with the goal of increasing the scale of international flights to 50% of the level before the corona pandemic at the end of this year. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport plans to increase the number of regular international flights from next month, increasing from 420 weekly flights this month to 520 in May and 620 in June. From July, the number of flights will be increased by 300, and in November, the number will be increased to 2,420, which is 50% of the pre-COVID-19 crisis. Under these circumstances, citizens' expectations for overseas travel are growing, but air ticket prices are expected to rise as oil prices continue to rise due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The price of Singapore jet fuel used by domestic airlines remained at around $60 a barrel last year, but has risen to more than $120 per barrel after the Ukraine crisis. The high oil price situation also affects fuel surcharges, leading to a burden on consumers. The fuel surcharge is to be paid by the consumer separately from the airfare when purchasing an air ticket. According to the airline industry, Korean Air's international fuel surcharge for next month will be applied at 17 levels, up 3 steps from this month. Based on the one-way distance, a minimum of 33,801 and a maximum of 256,101 will be charged for each proportional distance. Asiana Airlines international fuel surcharge for next month will also be applied at 17 levels, and a minimum of 35,401 and a maximum of 197,901 will be charged according to the distance based on the one-way distance. Level 17 is the highest level since the distance proportional section system was applied to fuel surcharges in July 2016. This month, 14 levels are applied, with Korean Air being charged a minimum of 28,601 and a maximum of 211,901, and Asiana Airlines, a minimum of 29,101 and a maximum of 161,301. The cost of PCR testing is also one of the factors that travelers feel burdened. Arrivals entering Korea from abroad must undergo at least 3 screening tests. The PCR test result in the local area must be negative, and the PCR test must be performed on the 1st and 7th days after entering the country. However, in Korea, insurance does not apply to PCR tests for overseas travel. Each PCR test usually costs about 100,000 to 180,000 won, including the cost of issuance of an English negative confirmation certificate, and the overseas PCR test costs are similar. For example, if a couple is going on an overseas trip, the cost of PCR testing alone is close to 1 million won. Among them, as the government operates the post-Omicron response system, the number of inspections for overseas travelers will be reduced from 3 to 2 from June. As the demand for food delivery and parcel delivery surged due to the spread of COVID-19, the number of delivery workers reached an all-time high. According to the report Employment Survey by Region in the second half of 2021, Characteristics of Employers by Industry and Occupation released by the National Statistical Office on the 19th, the number of delivery workers in October last year was 428,000, up 9.7% from a year ago. This is the highest number since 2013. The number of delivery workers stood at 349,000 as of October 2019, a 11.8% increase from 2020, 390,000. This is because orders for delivery food and online shopping have become more active as social distancing limits outside activities. In addition, many people are entering the delivery business because delivery workers have a low average income compared to other professions, even though the barriers to entry are low. According to the Korea Labor and Social Research Institute, the average monthly income of delivery workers is 3557,0001. This is relatively higher than the average salary of an office worker, which was around 3.31 million won as of last year. In fact, according to the 2021 Delivery Trend Report, there are many delivery workers who are earning the same level of income as large corporations. It was found that 26.7% of delivery workers earning more than 3 million won a month were earning more than 5 million won. Considering that the average monthly salary of large corporations is 5.29 million won, this is a considerable amount of money. While Seungri, real name Lee Seung-hyeon 31, a former member of the group Big Bang, is imprisoned, Seungri's younger sister indirectly informs about her brother's current situation, attracting attention. On the 19th, Seungri's sister, Mr. A, announced through the Instagram story function, "He misses you guys. If you guys have something to tell him, please contact me. I'll pass it on to him." Instead, she said, "He misses you. If he has anything he wants to say to him, let me know. It means I'll give it to you instead." In the context of the text, it is presumed that he refers to his older brother Seungri. Seungri's younger sister, Mr. A, is working as a DJ, and she appeared on MBC's entertainment program I Live Alone with Seungri in the past, showing her face to the public. Meanwhile, Seungri is currently in prison for the so-called Burning Sun nightclub scandal. Seungri, who had been charged with a total of 9 charges, was sentenced to 1 year and 6 months in prison at the appeal hearing held at the Ministry of National Defense Higher Military Court in January. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison, which he received on the first count. At the time of the first trial, Seungri apologized in his final statement, saying, "I'm sorry for worrying the people, and I'm sorry for disappointing the fans." In particular, Seungri, who was deeply moved by mentioning Big Bang YG Entertainment and his family, said, "I'm sorry to my colleagues who worked with me and to the officials of my former agency. I'm also sorry to my family who had a hard day because of me." Online sales of Park Jaebeom's Wonjoo, which had been sold in popularity, were temporarily suspended. According to One Spirits on the 19th, by 11:26 a.m. on the same day, more than 30 times the said amount was sold at the Wonjoo online mall. A limited edition of 2,000 bottles of Wonjoo liquor is sold every day, and consumers ordered a total of 63,915 bottles that day. An official explained that this was because the payment was made in excess of the amount that could be delivered due to an error in the shopping mall system. It is expected to take about a month to normalize. The timing of the resumption of the online mall service has not been determined at this time. One Spirits announced, "We apologize to members who visit our online mall at the same time on several days." J-Park recently established One Spirits, a startup specializing in alcoholic beverages, and launched a premium soju brand Wonjoo. From the 25th of last month to the 3rd of this month, 30,000 people visited the pop-up store operated by the Hyundai Seoul, Yongdongpogu, Seoul. Although it is an expensive soju of 14,900,000 won per bottle, attention was drawn to it, and 10,000 bottles were sold on the first day of its opening. The initial production volume of 20,000 bottles was all sold out within 1 week. Recently, as the cumulative number of COVID-19 cases surpassed 15 million, many people are complaining of the after-effects of COVID-19 even after the quarantine has been lifted. Typical symptoms are fatigue and lethargy, and there are many symptoms such as taste and smell disorders, shortness of breath, and cough. According to the medical community at home and abroad, the most common symptom after being infected with COVID-19 is fatigue. This is because suffering from fever, cough, and chills consumes more stamina than a common cold. In particular, if your physical strength is weak, the degree of fatigue may be more severe. It is also hypothesized that the cause of fatigue after viral infection is due to the relationship between the immune system and inflammation. In order to overcome the virus, our body's immune systems are consumed enormously. This is because fatigue may persist after viral infection due to an abnormal response to the virus or increased levels of inflammatory cytokines and inflammation of nervous tissue. Accordingly, experts agree that it is recommended to increase basic physical strength, eat a balanced diet, and do light exercise in order to alleviate the feeling of extreme fatigue and lethargy after being confirmed with COVID-19. Experts recommend that you eat foods that help you recover from fatigue. The Presidential Transition Committee, which helps the President-elect Yoon Seok-yeol, completely deprives the Democratic Party of the so-called GeomSuWanBak, giving the police the authority to investigate and allowing the prosecution only to prosecute, legislative runaway, legislative coup, etc. He strongly criticized and demanded an immediate stop using harsh expressions. The Transition Committee held an unscheduled emergency briefing on the afternoon of the 19th and said, "The Democratic Party must immediately stop the legislative runaway that is unconstitutional and will cause national harm. It is no different than damaging the beams ahead of the move, and it is an act of obstructing the operation of the new government." The Transition Committee said, "The legislative power is not indefinite and must be exercised in the direction of maximizing the interests of the people and within the framework of the Constitution. It will be difficult to avoid criticism that it is a legislative coup." The Transition Committee said, "Even the judiciary is unusually aware of 13 amendments to the Criminal Procedure Act." In fact, he expressed his opposition to the provision by saying that it needs to be reviewed or supplemented. The Transition Committee, citing the position of the court administration released on the afternoon of the same day, said, "The court administration has no way to correct the negligent or passive investigation of judicial police officers, there is no way to prevent human rights violations, and to respond promptly and appropriately to crimes. The Transition Committee is closely monitoring the concerns it is concerned about, pointing out that it cannot be done," he said. The Transition Committee said, "Even the courts need to think seriously about what it means to express such an unusual opinion. I want to believe that he will not turn away," he warned. In particular, the Transition Committee said, "To quickly destroy the foundation of the criminal justice system, which has been maintained for more than 70 years, due to the large number of seats in the National Assembly, is to destroy the foundation for the protection of human rights and the realization of justice for the people, and to overcome the limits of separation of powers. This is a grave threat to democracy, where legislation, administration, and justice must be checked and balanced." When asked about the response plan if the Democratic Party enforces legislation, the Transition Committee said, "If you have talked like this, would you not listen to me? And I hope that the Transition Committee will end with announcing its second position." The Transition Committee once announced that it was an act of violating the Constitution and disobeying the presidential election when the Democratic Party adopted the proposal of a legislative proposal at the General Assembly of the House of Representatives on the 13th. Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe.